must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
The government of Kenya is keen on the development of social economic infrastructure to support the realization of the Big Four agenda and Vision 2030. The ambitious infrastructure projects are aimed at opening up the country for business and bolster productivity, particularly in the agricultural, manufacturing and the service industry, as this would bolster employment opportunities. Part of these critical infrastructure projects include the ongoing 27-kilometer expressway linking Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport and Nairobi's Westlands. Upon completion, the expressway will exponentially reduce travel times within Nairobi and thus help the country save man-hours, which is being lost in the traffic jams on a daily basis. The Lake Victoria Port Modernization Project to increase cargo handling capacity of the port and to increase Kenya's bilateral and multilateral trading within the region. The expansion of healthcare facilities to facilitate fruition of the country's universal healthcare coverage under the Big Four agenda. By speeding up movement of people and goods, the government is aiming to promote trading through reduction of travel times and costs. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining us. This is The Punch, where we get to look at the week that was, the news that make headlines across Kenya and indeed across Africa. Thank you so much. My name is Miriam Mugutu, and it is a pleasure to have you this morning. Of course, in Kenya, what made headlines this week? We saw the heated BBI debate in Parliament on Wednesday and yesterday, not in Senate, and then we saw the nomination of our next Chief Justice and, of course, the latest on COVID-19. And I'd like to bring us up to date with those figures before we get into the headlines. But that is just some of the things that we shall be looking at this morning. And before I bring in my panelists, and Kenya, the confirmed cases this morning right now standing at 158,821 cases. The people who have since died in the country right now standing at 2,707. Recovery so far is 108,124 cases. Uganda, the confirmed cases standing at 41,797 cases. The death toll is 342. Recovery so far in Uganda is at 41,422. So basically Uganda, very few people are sick even. I think nobody is sick in Uganda when you look at the figures there. South Africa, the cases are now standing at 1,579,536 cases. The people who have died is 54,331 people. And recovery so far in South Africa is 1,504,426. So even in South Africa, the leading country in the continent in terms of the number of confirmed cases, the death toll and recoveries, I think the recovery rate there is also very, very impressive. And so less than, I think, 20,000 people are right now sick or receiving treatment for COVID-19 in South Africa. So the total figures in the continent this morning is 4,545,000 cases, 180, and the people who have since succumbed to COVID-19 in the continent are now standing at 121,529 cases, and no, that is the death. And recovery so far is 4,061,084, and of course the total number of global statistics right now have surpassed 151 million cases. So that is where we stand when it comes to COVID-19 in Kenya and as well as Africa. Joining me on the panel this morning is Jevan Karanja, all the way from Nanyuki. Jevan, a very good morning to you.
Indeed, it's a very good morning here in Nanyuki, Miriam. And good morning to you and the rest of the team, and good morning to our viewers wherever they are watching us, and good morning to the rest of panelists. Okay. Thank you for having me on the show.
Very nice to have you, and I think the rest of the panelists will join us as we continue. So let me read quickly are the headlines this morning, and then we shall get into our conversation. I will start with the Standard newspaper. The main headline there reading, "Who killed them?" The mystery behind the disappearance of 4 men 12 days ago deepened when 3 bodies were found dumped in Murang'a as the men's family came to terms with their brutal, and questions persisted over their clinical execution and disposal of bodies more than 100 kilometers away. The story is on page 8 of the Standard newspaper, and just up there, BBI 10 hot issues that split members of parliament. The story is on page 4, and we shall focus our attention there this morning, because I think this is a very important conversation in line with the BBI that we shall continue to have. And then after that, Murathe under fire over 4 billion Kenya shillings deal. The story is on page 4 of the page 6 of the Standard newspaper, and rising star Candy's Olympic target. That story is on page 55 of the Standard newspaper. And just down there, they say women who shook the wheels of justice. Sometime in 1998, a team of 15 women lawyers smiling for the camera immortalized the moment they were members of FIDA, which challenged tradition. Today, they have risen to powerful positions in society. And I think they make that story is in reference with our incoming Chief Justice, Justice Martha Koome. The other story is on page 10. And a bishop who goes beyond religious ties. That story is on page 3. And something that I think Kenyans will not be very happy to learn this morning is that Kenya has the most expensive internet. Kenyans pay more to access the internet compared to their peers in East Africa. According to a study survey by UK, the study across 230 countries shows Tanzania has the cheapest in the region. I think has the cheapest, but I think we do have the best infrastructure here. So maybe that comes with the cost, I don't know, but they're saying they're paying for expensive internet in the region. And on People's Daily this morning, the main headline, inside Yatani's 3.6 trillion Kenya shillings budget. Projections estimates are Uhuru's last attempt to cushion his legacy projects hard hit by COVID-19 pandemic disruptions. Page 3 of the People's Daily, and we know our budget will be coming up, I think, later on in June. And up there, "I'm not a COVID billionaire," Murathe tells members of parliament. Jubilee top official denies doing business with KEMSA and being a director of shareholder of company implicated in PPE scandal. The story is on page 6 of the People's Daily. A tragic end to missing friends as 3 bodies are identified. All were stuffed in gunny bags and tied with ropes before being dumped within a 30-kilometer radius in Thika and Murang'a County. The story is on page 15 of People's Daily. We go to the Star newspaper. The main headline, Harish Patel, cremation a higher calling. He is not paid for the work, but the satisfaction of fulfilling his vocation keeps him going. All right. Interesting. I guess giving, a decent send-off to loved ones there who choose to, do that through cremation. So he does that. And why school reopening could be postponed. Schools are expected to reopen on May 10th, but the plan could now be scattered by the high COVID-19 infection rate. The possibility of postponement has been occasioned by advisories that the rate of infection surpasses the recommended minimum that is safe for learning resumption. The story is on page 10 of the Star newspapers. 2 bodies found in Murang'a and Thika morgues, page 2 of the Star newspaper. And then on Siasa, the political pullout on the Star newspaper. It says Raila's dilemma, allies read betrayal as 2022 beckons. The story is on page 3 of the political Siasa, the political pullout there on page 3 of that. And then we turn our attention to the Daily Nation, and the main headline on the Daily Nation this morning, who killed this man? Murder most foul. A missing person case has now turned into a murder investigation after bodies of 3 of the 4 men who vanished in Kitengela, Kajiado last week were found miles away, 2 stashed in sacks and dumped in rivers in Murang'a, and another in a cold mortuary in Kiambu. And then just besides that, 2 billion Kenya shillings claim rocks Moi wealth case. And then I found this to be quite interesting. Of course, remember there's a time a couple of days, maybe months ago, when a few weeks ago when the COVID vaccine, the government was starting off the rollout, and there was a particular Catholic doctor Jevan, you remember this conversation. Who was advising people not to
remember.
take the COVID? Yes, and he succumbed to COVID-19. The story is on page 7. Catholic doctor, a vaccine skeptic, dies of COVID-19. Look at that. Our condolences to him and the church. And it's Uhuru, Raila versus Ruto as MPs clash over BBI bill, whether to amend or not. Constituencies road takes center stage, and we saw how that played out yesterday. Murathi's Chinese link in 4 billion Kenya shillings scams attend award. Top politicians' connections, as teacher cited. So that is what we have on the front pages there of the Standard newspaper. I think maybe this COVID-19 story is where we should start our conversation, because this, I don't know if there are any lessons Kenya can learn from this. We're also joined by Samuel Tawish this morning. Samuel Tawish, good morning.
Good morning to you, Miriam, and my fellow panelists. My morning is pretty well right here at the heart of Kenya's capital in Nairobi.
All right. Nice to see you this morning. So let's just start with this doctor, this Catholic doctor who died. And I remember us strongly feeling that he should stop misleading the people. The story is on page 7 of the Daily Nation. Dr. Stephen Karanja, who vehemently opposed the administration of coronavirus vaccines in the country, has died of COVID-19. Karanja, who was chairman of the Kenya Catholic Association, had been admitted at Mater Hospital for over a week. He used his leadership platform to oppose mass vaccination against the deadly virus and advocate for alternate treatment for COVID-19. Jevan Karanja.
Thank you very much, Miriam. And there's a conversation that we had here a couple of months ago. But to be very critical, and even in that very moment, I opposed the doctor coming up with that contrary opinion that opposing the mass vaccination. Him as a doctor should have maybe seated back and watched from periphery, because I know there was a lot of public participation, and the doctors were involved. They were part of the people who were in front line to come up with measures to ensure that we curb the spread of COVID-19. Therefore, I feel like that was an amount that was not quite fair.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Jevan seems to be having a bit of a technical hitch there, but Dr. Karanja had maintained a strong stance against the COVID-19 vaccination drive. In a statement in early March, he argued that there was no need for Kenyans to take the vaccine. Yeah, go ahead.
That was a move of ignorance, and I don't expect that to happen in future, that the people who are supposed to lead us from the front, they are coming up with contrary opinions to deceive the masses. Therefore, he should have gone with his opinion, and he should not have come out, because maybe through his opinion or through his what he said then influenced some people maybe to oppose to go and take these vaccines. And you see, he has succumbed to COVID-19. Therefore, this shows clearly and to all Kenyans that COVID does not respect anybody. COVID does not choose who you are, whether you're a doctor or whether you're president. It will come for you. Therefore, it is high time that we keep care of ourselves, we follow the government protocols, and we listen to information that is real. We avoid this half-baked information. We avoid these misconceptions and conspiracies that is being pushed by people who don't feel like the government is doing a good job. Therefore, it is high time that we take this fight, this crisis, as a personal responsibility, as a personal war, so that we fight from our individual level. Then we come and we fight as a country, because we don't expect the doctor to give us those terms and we follow. What if the COVID catches up with us? We will suffer individually. Therefore, it is high time that Kenyans understand that we'll carry the burden, we'll carry the cross of COVID-19 as individual, but not as a Catholic church, not as a PCA church, not as a group, but as an individual. Therefore, everybody should take their every step necessary to ensure that they keep they keep themselves safe from this monster. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. COVID-19 is no respecter of a person. And may I just add that COVID-19 is no respecter of faith. Okay? And to know this doctor is a scientist, understood very well. But still, this is what is quoted as saying earlier in March. It seems there is something Bill Gates has invented in that requires the whole world to be vaccinated. That the investment is remains the million-dollar question, he said. He added, we know for a fact that there are drugs that have been repurposed and used effectively to treat COVID-19. We also know the vaccination for this disease is totally unnecessary, making the motivation suspect. He recommended 3 effective treatment methods: inhaling steam several times a day. That sounds like the late Pombe Magufuli, but this doctor was recommending it. Taking ivermectin tablets, I can't even say that right, and following the Zelenko protocol, which entails taking a combination of drugs daily for a week. And we know there are people who have also, a person like Raila said, he also did that inhalation and all that, but he also went for proper treatment when he contracted this COVID-19. But he just did not agree with the science that he went to study on, especially him being a doctor. Tawish there. What are some of the lessons that perhaps we should learn?
Very well. Thank you so much, Miriam, and my co-panelist, Javan Karanja, and everyone indeed who is watching us. This is a very pertinent topic this morning, Miriam, we are having in Punchline Africa TV regarding the lessons that perhaps we can learn as Kenyans and as a society, as humanity generally, I think, in the whole world, that what is it we can learn out of this pandemic. First and foremostly, allow me to submit that humanity had all along seemed to have deviated and disregarded that God really exists. Or if he does, that maybe he does not have power over us or over everything. But I think with the kind of pandemic that has been ravaging the whole world from last year until now, there are lessons that we are bound to learn, that God really exists, that he allows certain things to happen so that his for the society and for the world to understand how they can contain this virus. Because even in the face of getting the vaccine, still things appear not to be working for our good. Still, this spread continues. We are seeing even in India, where this AstraZeneca vaccine is being produced, that people continue to die every now and then, in fact, in large numbers. So basically what this pandemic is teaching us is that nobody is immune at all. It does not matter which part of the world you live. It does not matter your status in the society, whether you are a president. We've had presidents, we have had high-profile politicians actually losing their lives, or some of them actually surviving through a thin line out of this pandemic. It tells you that nobody is really immune. It does not matter whether you're a woman or a man, whether you a politician or not, whether you have wealth or you are poor. This disease is teaching us that everyone really needs to prepare themselves and needs to abide by the scientific, of course, protocols that have been put forth by the Ministry of Health in Kenya here, and I think globally. Because again, the disregard of the same has seen us, or some of our friends, some of our family members, some of those close to us, actually, some of them are contracting this disease, and worse, some of them actually losing their lives. There are people who have had an experience, a first-hand experience. You've listened to, of course, experiences from Raila Odinga, if I may give the example here in Kenya, Amos Wako, the senator for Busia, and other high-profile politicians. I mean, the governor for Meru, that is Kiraitu Murugi, and other leaders here in the country coming out and saying, indeed, they affirm to us that indeed this disease exists. Because initially, before it attacked them, they thought maybe this is just another concocted story to try and maybe politicize the situation in the country. Some of the people who are actually blaming President Uhuru Kenyatta and saying maybe it's coming people from doing campaigns, but you've seen the victims. They have cut across, whether you're a politician or not, whether you're high profile or not, whether you have money or not, all these people have had to go that very severe experience. But another lesson that we should learn actually moving forward is that we need to prepare ourselves in terms of our health infrastructure in the country. Because again, you've seen makeshifts being put in place. You've seen the crime and the lack of the oxygen in our hospitals today. You've seen the lack of beds in our very hospitals today. In fact, Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Referral, and other big hospitals in the country lacking the very necessities that they require, and also in terms of the preparedness by the entire human force, that is the human force in terms of the doctors who attend to patients. So it tells us about the preparation, that any given time we need to be prepared well in advance in terms of how our health facilities are they in a position to accommodate? For example, even if 47 million Kenyans were to fall sick today at a go, what will this country actually do? What will this country go through? It is actually something that is troubling, the people today. So we need to go back to the drawing board, that in as much as we are battling this pandemic, also we need to put in place, as moving forward, the leadership of this country and the well-wishers and the donor nations to come out and ensure that we facilitate and ensure we have proper infrastructure in terms of hospitals, in terms of medicine, in terms of the medical personnel, so that if we are caught with a situation like what we are in as far as coronavirus is concerned, we are not just caught off guard and we cannot be able to come out of it. We can't bail our people out of it. So those are some of the lessons I think, personally, I've learned, and I think most Kenyans have really learned, that this disease does not segregate, it does not really go for only the poor or go for high profile. Anyone can contract it anytime. And another thing is that the country, especially governments, need to invest on health infrastructure so that we are not actually caught by surprise like what it is the situation now, Miriam.
Okay, very well. Thank you so much. We are all susceptible. As long as you are in situations where you're likely to be exposed, you will get COVID-19. It's no joke. And so social distance, wash your hands, wear your mask every time you're in public. I think that is very, very critical and crucial, so that you keep yourself safe and the people that you love. And if you don't have to be out there, just do something from your house, I think, if you can. But if you have to be out there, make sure you're safe. We need you here, in the years to come, all right? And something else that I think also we should talk about before we get into the BBI debate, Kenya has pushed the planned closure of refugee camps to June 2022 following discussions with the United Nations. I'm reading from the Daily Nation, page 7. The decision arose from last-minute lobbying by UNHCR boss Filippo Grandi, who held discussions with Interior and Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i and Rachel Omamo, respectively. A joint team comprising officials from the government and the UNHCR will be formed to formalize and implement a roadmap on the next steps towards a humane management of refugees from East African countries. So again, Kenya has bent over backwards to be understanding and to try to understand even the plight of these refugees, even as Kenya has come out and said, this camp, there are few individuals there that have been harbored there that are posing a national security challenge for this country. And I think time and time again from the attacks that you've seen, the intelligence report has shown that a lot of these attacks sometimes are being planned in some of these camps. But again, by a few individuals, majority of people, they are refugees who just found themselves in a bad situation because of what is happening in their country, especially in Somalia and South Sudan. So Kenya has again shown its humane face. We know the CS for Interior was very adamant, this is the government's position, we need them out. But, they've had conversations and now they're working a way to implement and see how some of these refugees can be repatriated or find a better option so that it's a win-win for them to ensure they are okay, but also for the country. Javan Karanja, how do you see them honoring? Because this is not the first time Kenya is getting into agreement with UNHCR and Somalia. They've done that before, but Kenya honored its part of them, again the rest did not. So are they likely to do that this time round?
Thank you, Miriam. And Fred Matiang'i came out very via brazen, and he said that this time round the government is not going to sit back and watch this terrorism activity to see the country giving a conducive environment for these kind of misbehaviors to thrive in these Daabab and Kakuma refugee camps. But it seems like with the revelations that they have recently had, it comes out that Kenya is still the country that is willing to ensure that the innocent people in these camps, they are repatriated back to their countries in a human way. And maybe other preparations should be done to their mother countries to ensure that all the necessities, all what they need is put in place to ensure that even when they go back to their countries, those kids who have been going to school in the country, those parents maybe who have been struggling with 1 or 2, 3 issues like the health issues and so on, that in their mother countries, those kind of necessities and social kind of services should be also made available, so that we avoid taking them from where they have been benefiting and we take them to a place where it's more harsh than in these refugee camps. Therefore, this shows that as a country, we are doing well. But I think the Kenyan government should ensure that these people are repatriated, they are taken back home. And so that if this is the breeding ground of this terrorist activity, is a breeding ground of radicalization of our youths to join these militias, then we should, if it continues after that, then we can look for another source of this kind of happenings. Therefore, I feel like the government of Kenya is doing a quite good job, and they have set an example as a peace-loving country with its neighbors. Therefore, this shows that we have good leadership in the country that cares not only for the people in this country, but for the people outside. Therefore, it is a part of the Somali government, is a part of the South Sudan, it's a part of the United Nations to ensure that these countries where these people came from, that the necessary the necessary services are put in place, that their country will be able to continue giving these people the basic needs that they need, so that they can see the need of having a peaceful country in their country. I think the Somalis and the South Sudan the government should give money to ensure that all these things are necessitated.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are serious about completing the repatriation, which we started in 2016 in full view of our international obligations and our domestic responsibility. We therefore reiterate our earlier position to close Daabab and Kakuma camps by June 2022. Dr. Matiang'i said in November 2013, Kenya, Somalia, and the United Nations High Commission for Refugees reached an agreement to gradually close Daabab camp. The deal was to see the repatriation of Somali refugees within 3 years. By April 2016, however, only 14,000 had been repatriated despite massive efforts by the international community to stabilize Somalia. Last month, Dr. Matiang'i announced the government's decision to close the two camps and called on the UNHCR in 2 weeks to present a plan that will allow that to happen. So on Tuesday, however, the High Court suspended the plan, but this came as discussions went on for a staggered closure. The US also pleaded for delay, arguing that Kenya could violate its obligation if it closes the camps abruptly. And Kenya is wondering international obligations versus national interest, and that is I think the place that where Kenya finds itself, which is not a very easy place there, because a lot of lives and things are at stake here. Some also wish.
Miriam, first of all, it's good for us to underscore that international obligation does not supersede the national interest. And I think in this case, that is why Kenya is really taking this move to ensure that the refugees, especially those in the Daabab and Kakuma camp, can return back to where they came from. And I think this has largely been informed by the fact that having keenly observed and done investigations, the security apparatus in the country have come into a conclusion that these two camps majorly have been a breeding ground for the terrorism activities that we have been experiencing as a country here in Kenya. And therefore, that's why it comes to my point that the national interest, and national interest in this case, I imply that Kenya's security supersedes any other international obligation. Because again, if the international obligation is Kenya to help, for example, host the refugees who have run away from their homes because of the insecurity, because of the political wars, the havoc that are happening in their country, then what is Kenya supposed to do if the same move compromises or it's at the expense of Kenya's own national security? So that is why I am of a considered view that Kenya's decision to actually close down the Daabab and Kakuma camp is a welcome move, because again, refugee camps are supposed to be a temporary humanitarian remedy awaiting stabilization of their countries of origin. And I believe to some level, maybe Somalia now appears to be stable. If President Farmajo's, recent moves and actions are anything to go by. Refugee camps are not permanent settlements, Miriam and my friend Javan. They are not migration centers that you put people there and they have to stay there forever. Yet these people, they have now been using these refugee camps as migration centers. They want to use this as a permanent settlement area for them, which should not be the case in the first place. These are just temporary sanctuaries set up to ensure that we give homage to people who are running away from hostilities, be it even internally here in Kenya. That's why we had IDPs here in Kenya when we had the post-election violence in 2007, 2008. So it is in my considered view that as a result of insecurity created, of course, by the existence of refugee camps in Kenya, and particularly in the Daabab and Kakuma camp, Kenya has continued to suffer the brunt of negative consequences, such as, of course, the travel advisories that have been issued against Kenya from time to time, and poor humanitarian rating with obvious negative consequences to our country's economy. Therefore, the closure is a welcome move. I feel that Kenya should now not rescind on this move. Remember, there have been such approaches, such initiatives even before. Way back, I think, was in 2016 or before then, Kenya has had, of course, intention to close down this Daabab camp and Kakuma camps, but again, with the intervention of the United Nations High Commission for Refugees and other international organizations, including the United Nations Security Council, have been intervening, or rather intervening into Kenyan authorities to see into it how they can, for example, allow the situation to stabilize in Somalia before these people can go back. Remember, even with the voluntary return that was initiated or started way back in 2016, a record of over 8,000 to close to 10,000 now, I believe, have gone back to their country, especially Somalia, because the Daabab and Kakuma camp host a huge chunk of refugees who come from Somalia. So these people have gone back voluntarily, but they have never returned back to the camp saying maybe the ground is hostile or they cannot settle. So what reason do the people who continue, rather the refugees who continue to live in the Daabab and Kakuma camp will give to the Kenyan authorities or to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees or even the United Nations Security Council that they cannot go back to Somalia because Somalia is unstable? In any case, Kenya and the rest of the African continent has been helping to pacify Somalia so that the kind of infighting, the kind of attacks that have been happening there, the instability and lack of peace can be restored so that these people now can comfortably return back home. So I support fully Kenya's government move to repatriate these citizens to go back to their country, but it should be done in a humane way. I think that is where my stress is. This repatriation, this sending back of the refugees has to be done in a humane way. It has to be done in a way that does not compromise the safety and security of the refugees even as they go back to their country. They need to go back and help in building Somalia that has been ravaged by a civil war ever since the ousting of Siad Barre in 1992. Miriam, I submit.
All right, thank you so much, Samuel Tawish. And we all know that the recent postponement of the election that was meant to be taking place on the 8th of February further complicated the peace process there in Somalia. So I'm happy that President Farmajo a couple of days ago receded that extension that he had Parliament